Maria Santos adjusted the rearview mirror of her taxi, a battered yet reliable model known as the XR7, Series 2340. The familiar scent of burnt coffee lingered in the air, mixed with the metallic tang of the seat covers, worn by countless passengers. Outside, the bustling Gamma 7 intergalactic spaceport throbbed with life, the sounds of zipping hovercrafts, chattering aliens, and the distant hum of the docking bays creating a symphony that was strangely comforting. Next, she called out, waving her hand at the line of passengers waiting for a ride. Today marked her 5th year driving this unpredictable, yet rewarding job, and every day felt like an adventure. The passengers she encountered were often colorful, carrying stories wrapped in every accent, smell, and gesture. Her first passenger of the day approached, a tall, lean figure with shimmering blue skin, delicate antennae protruding from his forehead. Maria took a moment to assess the alien. He appeared nervous, his large eyes darting around as if he were lost in a sea of unfamiliarity. A swirl of compassion filled Maria's heart. She had learned that every creature, no matter the species, carried burdens. "Where to, my friend?" she asked, her voice cheery as she opened the door wider. "You, Earth Alpha Station," he replied, his voice surprisingly smooth but tinged with an accent Maria hadn't encountered before. "Alpha Station it is," Maria said, putting the taxi into gear. "You're in for a bit of a ride. Buckle up." As they sped away from the spaceport, the alien, identified as Zektar, settled into the seat, his body language still stiff. It was clear he was here for more than just a taxi ride. He felt weighed down by something heavy, something unsaid. "So," she started, attempting to break the ice, "you're not from around here, are you?" Zektar's antennae twitched slightly, a sign Maria had read as a sign of discomfort. "No, I come from the planet Altar," he replied, his voice quieter now. "I'm here on business, I suppose." "Business?" Maria echoed, glancing at him through the mirror. "Or is it something more personal?" He hesitated, and for a split second, Maria felt an impulse to turn back and tell him that he didn't have to share anything if he didn't want to, but something in her gut urged her to press on. "Honestly," he began, almost reluctantly, I'm just trying to escape problems that seem too large to handle." "Are you a single father?" she asked, noticing the weariness around his eyes. "Yes," Zektar replied, a hint of sorrow in his tone. "My daughter, Lyrics, is back home. I wanted to bring her here, to see the stars, to have a better life, but..." The pain in his voice tugged at Maria's heartstrings. She knew that distance from loved ones could be unbearable, especially for a parent. "But it's complicated?" He nodded, and Maria could see the internal struggle reflected in his deep blue irises. "My people face a critical decision. I am not sure if I can return home without inciting conflict." A tense silence filled the air, broken only by the rhythmic thrum of the taxi's engine and the sound of the vibrant spaceport buzzing behind them. Maria sensed that no amount of advanced technology could offer advice for the turmoil Zektar faced. "Conflict can start from misunderstandings," she said softly, turning her attention back to the road. "Sometimes all it takes is a conversation." "A conversation?" Zektar echoed, a flicker of curiosity igniting in his eyes. "You think that's enough?" "It's a start," Maria said, tapping a finger against the steering wheel. "I'm no philosopher, but I've learned a thing or two from my passengers. Sometimes people just need someone to listen." Zektar seemed to mull over her words. "Listening is an art form, just like speaking," he finally mused. "I do not think many of my kind will understand this." "Probably not," Maria said, shrugging lightly, "but it's important. We humans face our own challenges too. You know, like keeping this old taxi running." She chuckled and motioned toward the cracked dashboard, which seemed to be bordering on a technological relic. Zektar allowed a small smile to break his solemn expression. "Perhaps you are more than just a driver," he commented. "Your perspective does intrigue me." Maria felt a warmth blossom inside her. "Thanks, I try. Just like you, I have my struggles, but I've learned that sharing them often makes it easier." As they cruised past the towering holographic displays of the spaceport, she could see how vibrant and diverse their surroundings were. Vendors called out in various languages, creatures from different planets mingled, and space travelers connected in ways that sometimes felt impossible to comprehend. Zektar shifted in his seat, finally looking more relaxed, and Maria felt the weight of the conversation lift slightly. "I came here to find a solution, but instead, I find people who inspire me. You humans, your passions, your simple advice, it is bewildering." "Simple can be powerful," Maria replied, her pulse quickening with excitement. "Sometimes it's the simplest things that can change the course of a whole day, or even a life." "Do you really think so?" he asked, genuinely intrigued. "Absolutely. Like guiding a lost passenger," she said, glancing back at him, "or sharing a laugh with a stranger. It creates connections, and connections are what we need more of, especially across species." Zektar leaned back, staring thoughtfully at the dashboard. "You know, Maria, I have a troubling secret I haven't shared with anyone. Something about my home planet." Maria's heart raced as she anticipated what he would reveal. She felt a connection forming, a bond that transcended the barriers of species and culture. She smiled, encouraging him to continue, aware that this conversation could change everything. "Please, tell me," she said, her curiosity piqued and her compassion ready to embrace whatever Zektar was ready to share. He exhaled slowly, preparing to unveil the heavy burdens that had drawn him to this spaceport and to her taxi. And as he did, Maria knew that this ride was about to take a turn into uncharted territory, leading them both toward an unimaginable journey where circumstances could shift, and a conflict might just be thwarted by the simplest act of kindness. As they neared Alpha Station, she braced herself for the revelations to come. Maria felt a weight settle in the air between them, something heavy and real. She glanced at Zektar through the mirror, noticing the way his antennae drooped slightly, a silent testament to his distress. The taxi sped along the winding lanes of Gamma 7, the vibrant cityscape blurring past her window. She couldn't shake off the feeling that Zektar's troubles were more than just personal, they threatened to spiral out of control. "Zektar," she began cautiously, "what's causing this conflict back on Altar? You mentioned a critical decision. Is it something about your people?" His eyes flickered with the painful memories buried beneath his calm exterior. "Yes, Maria. The Altharians are at odds with the Kranthians. A misunderstanding over resources, and it has escalated into something much larger: territorial claims, accusations, and now," he paused, taking a deep breath, "war seems imminent." Maria's heart sank. War? Over a misunderstanding? The mere thought of it was unfathomable. What sparked it? Zektar shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "It started with a mining operation near the shared borders of our planets. The Kranthians accused us of encroaching upon their territory, claiming we were stealing their resources. But it was merely an error in the mapping software. No one intended harm, yet the tensions have risen to a boiling point." Maria turned her attention back to the road, processing the gravity of Zektar's words. "So, if you return without clearing this up, it could lead to a war that could destroy both your worlds?" He nodded gravely. "Exactly. I wanted to bring my daughter here, to show her the wonders of the universe, but instead, I find myself caught in this web of chaos. I don't know how to mend the rift." Maria felt an unexpected surge of responsibility. Here she was, a simple taxi driver, and yet she could see a glimmer of hope in this dire situation. Perhaps her experiences with diverse passengers had prepared her for this moment. "What if you talk to the Kranthians?" she suggested, her voice steady. "Maybe you could explain the misunderstanding. People might listen if you reach out." Zektar looked skeptical. "You think they would listen? They view us as enemies." "Maybe, but enemies can become allies with the right words." Maria thought of her own life, how communication had saved her from misunderstandings with friends and family. What if you could bring them together over a common ground? Perhaps a neutral space where both sides could share their perspectives? Zektar's eyes widened, and for the first time, Maria saw a spark of hope in his expression. A neutral space. It could work, but where would that be? Does your culture have a tradition for resolving disputes? A place where both peoples have met before? Maria pressed, her heart racing with the possibility of a solution. He closed his eyes for a moment, deep in thought. "There is a place, a neutral zone called the Valley of Harmony. It's a beautiful valley where both Altharians and Kranthians used to come to negotiate treaties, but many have forgotten its significance. It could serve as a backdrop for dialogue." "Then that's it," Maria exclaimed, a smile breaking across her face. "You have to go there. But how do you convince them?" Zektar looked uncertain, but the spark remained. "I would need to gather allies to support my cause. Those who believe peace is possible." Maria felt a surge of determination. "Then we'll find them. Together, we can bridge this gap. I'll help you reach out to your allies, and we can make a plan to approach the Kranthians." Zektar blinked, surprise evident on his face. "You would do that for me?" "Of course," Maria said, her voice firm. "You're not just a passenger, you're a friend in need. Plus, I can't bear the thought of a war erupting over something that can be resolved with a good conversation." They shared a moment of understanding, one that transcended their species and backgrounds. Zektar's antennae perked up slightly, and he smiled, a rare expression that lit up his features. "Thank you, Maria. I had lost hope, but now, perhaps we can make a difference." As they continued their journey, Maria felt a renewed sense of purpose. The weight of responsibility pressed on her shoulders, but for the first time, it felt invigorating. She was no longer just a taxi driver, she was an ally, a bridge between two worlds on the brink of disaster. "What's your next step?" she asked, her focus shifting back to the path ahead. "Do you have allies back on Altar?" Zektar nodded. "Yes, I have a few close friends who understand the value of peace. But I need to be careful. Many back home have fallen prey to fear and anger. I can't risk losing their trust." "Then let's craft a message that encompasses your true intentions. We can work on that while we drive." Maria felt a rush of excitement at the thought of creating a plan that could potentially save lives. "Thank you for your guidance, Maria. You have a unique perspective," Zektar said, leaning back in his seat with a contemplative expression. "You humans think differently. Your ability to empathize is refreshing." She chuckled, feeling a warmth spreading through her. "Well, I suppose we all have our qualities. You have your strengths too, Zektar. You're intelligent and capable. You've traveled across galaxies. That takes courage." "Courage," he echoed, reflecting on her words. "I hope to find mine again." Maria's heart swelled with determination. They were both on a journey, one that could change the course of history for both their species. She glanced up at the bright lights of the Gamma 7, the vivid colors illuminating the path before them. "Let's get started, Zektar. We have a lot of work to do if we're going to prevent a war." As they approached the next intersection, Maria turned on her signal, ready to navigate through the vastness of possibilities ahead. The stakes were high, but together, they could create a new narrative, one of understanding, friendship, and hope in the face of impending conflict. The cityscape of Gamma 7 shimmered outside the taxi's window as Maria navigated through the bustling streets. Her thoughts raced faster than the hovercrafts zipping by, all centered on Zektar's predicament. She sensed the weight of his responsibility, the burden he carried for his people, and it stirred something deep within her. "Zektar, have you thought about how we might convince the Kranthians to meet at the Valley of Harmony?" Maria asked, glancing back at him through the rearview mirror. He sighed, his antennae drooping further. "I have contacts, but they are cautious. The Kranthians value logic and structured communication above all else. Emotions don't guide them. It's hard to make them see beyond their fears." Maria nodded, absorbing his words. The Kranthians, she mused, were renowned for their rigid adherence to protocol. It could be a barrier, but perhaps there was a way to break through. What if we approached it like a business negotiation? You know, present the data clearly and concisely. You could prepare a formal proposal. Zektar raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. A proposal? They might respond to that, but the challenge is in capturing their attention. My people tend to get emotional, they might not respect a mere document. Then let's frame the conversation differently, Maria suggested. Instead of focusing on the conflict, let's emphasize the benefits of cooperation. Both sides need resources, and working together could lead to mutual prosperity. He seemed to consider this, his eyes lighting up with the flicker of hope. That could work, but I fear my own people won't see it that way. They are entrenched in their positions. Then we just need to show them what's at stake, Maria replied, her confidence blooming. If they see that a war would cost them more than cooperation, it might change their minds. As they pulled up to a central hub in Gamma 7, a sleek, multi-species office building, Zektar hesitated. "This is where I often meet my contacts, but I'm not sure if they'll take me seriously after all that has happened." "Let's just try," Maria encouraged, her grip tightening on the steering wheel as if it would steady the waves of uncertainty crashing around them. "You've got this." Zektar took a deep breath, visibly steeling himself. "You're right. I need to advocate for peace." He opened the door and stepped out, the sun casting a stark contrast against his blue skin. Maria followed, her heart racing, feeling the gravity of the moment settle in. Inside, the lobby buzzed with activity. Different species mingled, their conversations forming a tapestry of languages and sounds. The air was heavy with the scent of synthetic coffee and the low hum of machinery. Maria and Zektar approached a sleek reception desk where a Kranthian named Kix stood, their smooth gray skin glinting under the fluorescent lights. "Zektar," Kix greeted, their tone flat, a stark contrast to the warmth Maria had expected. "I heard about the tensions. What brings you here?" Zektar swallowed hard. "I wish to discuss the situation between our peoples, Kix. I believe we can resolve our misunderstandings." Kix's expression remained skeptical, their large, unblinking eyes narrowing slightly. "And why would we trust you? Your people have already breached our territory." "Because I come with a proposal," Zektar replied, his voice steady but laced with the strain of desperation. "I believe a meeting at the Valley of Harmony could allow us to resolve our issues without further bloodshed. There's no reason for a war over a misunderstanding." Kix tilted their head, processing the information. "A proposal? A meeting? Sounds like you have not considered the gravity of the situation." Maria felt a rush of frustration but held her tongue, allowing Zektar to navigate this conversation. "I have considered it deeply," he continued. "The resources on both sides are essential for our survival. A war would devastate both our worlds. We need to find common ground. What you refer to as common ground, we consider a violation," Kix replied, their voice unwavering. "There are protocols for addressing such disputes, and you have not followed them." Maria could sense Zektar's tension rising, the frustration of his people colliding with the cold logic of the Kranthian. Realizing she needed to step in, she cleared her throat. "Kix, may I speak?" Kix looked at her, eyes narrowing even further, a flicker of surprise crossing their face at her sudden interjection. Zektar is right, she said boldly, feeling the weight of her position as a mediator. A war serves no one, and if we approach this with the structures you value, like facts and data, we can show how cooperation is more beneficial than conflict. The Kranthian raised an eyebrow, intrigued but still guarded. And what data do you have? Let's say we prepare a presentation, Maria suggested, her heart pounding. We can outline the resources, the potential benefits, and the paths forward. If we can frame it as a joint venture instead of a negotiation, maybe that would appeal more to your sensibilities. Kix studied her for a long moment, their expression unreadable. You believe a mere presentation can sway the opinions of my people? It's not just a presentation. It's a chance for both of our peoples to understand the full picture, Maria replied, her voice steady as she searched for the right words. If we can create a visual that illustrates the costs of conflict versus the benefits of collaboration, it might make a difference. Interesting. Kix's tone softened slightly, but they remained skeptical. You present an unconventional approach. I'm curious to see what you can come up with. However, I will warn you, our people value logic above all else. Emotional appeals will not be sufficient. Maria nodded, understanding the stakes. We'll keep it logical, I promise. Zektar glanced at her, a mix of gratitude and uncertainty in his expression. Thank you, Maria. Whatever happens, I appreciate your support. As they walked out of the office building, Maria felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She was in uncharted territory, but the fire of determination burned brightly within her. Okay, let's get to work on that presentation. We need hard facts, visuals, whatever it takes to show the Kranthians the reality of this situation. Zektar nodded, the weight on his shoulders lifting ever so slightly. With your help, we might actually have a chance. But as they settled into the taxi, Maria knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, and the time for action was now. She would have to dig deep, think creatively, and find a way to connect with the Kranthians on their terms. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, and she was determined to help Zektar change the course of history. Maria felt a twinge of determination course through her as she stepped into the lobby's vibrant atmosphere, the array of figures moving about almost blurring her focus. Zektar stood beside her, his scales glinting under the artificial lights, but his expression was far from confident. She couldn't ignore the rising tension that swirled around them like the hum of the bustling crowd. We need to show them how emotions can lead to understanding, Maria said, her voice steady, but her heart raced with the gravity of their task. Zektar turned to her, his large eyes filled with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. How do you propose we do that? The Kranthians do not operate on feelings. They are beings of logic. That's exactly why we need to present it differently, Maria replied, her mind whirring with ideas. What if we tell a story? A narrative that highlights the importance of emotions in decision-making? Zektar's antennae perked up slightly, a flicker of intrigue crossing his features. A story? But they might dismiss it as mere fiction. They need data, facts. True, she conceded, but stories are powerful. They connect people. If we can show them how emotions can lead to better choices, real choices, backed by facts, they might consider our proposal more seriously. Interesting, he murmured, contemplating her words. But do you think I can tell a story? Maria smiled, encouraging him. Absolutely. You have experience, right? You've lived through your people's struggles. You can share that. Zektar hesitated, as if the very idea of storytelling felt foreign to him. I have never thought about it that way. My role has always been to lead, to strategize. Emotions have always been an afterthought. Maria stepped closer, her voice softening. But you're more than a strategist. You're a leader who cares about his people. That passion can be the heart of your story. The realization flickered in Zektar's eyes. He was beginning to understand. Perhaps there is a way to weave together our experiences. If I could present the conflict from both perspectives, highlight our fears and hopes, then it might resonate with them. Exactly, Maria exclaimed, a rush of excitement surging within her. And I can help you with the framework. We can articulate the logic they crave while embedding the emotional truth that's vital for peace. A spark of enthusiasm ignited in Zektar's expression as he nodded slowly, beginning to envision their approach. I can share the tale of my father, who sought peace with the Kranthians during an earlier conflict. He understood that cooperation could yield greater prosperity than war. Perfect, Maria beamed. And you can highlight the consequences of that conflict, the losses on both sides. It'll be a strong reminder of what war truly costs. Zektar's voice grew stronger, his confidence returning. I will illustrate how my people's emotions have been a driving force, how fear can lead to anger, but also to understanding if guided correctly. They spent several moments brainstorming, their ideas intertwining like threads in a tapestry. As they crafted the outline of Zektar's story, Maria felt a sense of purpose blossoming within her. It was more than just a plan, it was a bridge between two cultures, a chance to dissolve the barriers that had kept them apart for too long. Suddenly, Zektar paused, his expression shifting. But what if they reject the story? What if they see it as a manipulation of their logic? Maria took a deep breath, sensing the rising stakes. We need to be transparent. We must acknowledge their values while showing them the strength in vulnerability. Honesty can be disarming. Zektar nodded, the tension in his posture easing. You're right, Maria. I have to trust that they will see the value in what we're trying to accomplish. Exactly. We will enter the meeting prepared, not just with facts but with a heartfelt narrative that embodies our shared struggle for peace. With renewed vigor, they continued to refine their approach as they moved through the lobby toward a break room, where they could gather their thoughts away from the crowds. The sense of burnt coffee and pastry filled the air, a comforting background to their planning. Do you think the Kranthians will understand? Zektar asked, a flicker of doubt creeping back into his voice. I believe they will, especially if we make it relatable, Maria replied, her resolve firm. We just need to present it as a shared experience rather than a divide. They might be logical, but that doesn't mean they lack the capacity for empathy. Your confidence is refreshing, Zektar admitted, a smile breaking through his initial anxiety. I have never met a human quite like you. A warmth spread through Maria at his compliment. And I've never met an alien like you, Zektar. Your willingness to adapt is inspiring. As they left the break room, Maria felt the weight of their mission ahead, but with Zektar at her side, the path seemed clearer. They made their way to the meeting room, where the Kranthians awaited. The air was thick with the scent of anticipation and nervous energy. Remember, we're here to connect, Maria whispered as they approached the door. Let's show them that our differences can lead to something beautiful. Zektar nodded, his determination rekindled. Together, we will make them understand. With a final deep breath, they stepped into the room, ready to share their story and, hopefully, change the fate of their worlds. The conference room was a stark contrast to the vibrant atmosphere of the lobby outside. Its sterile white walls and flickering overhead lights felt oppressive, as if the very air inside was laden with doubt. Maria and Zektar stood at the front, facing the assembly of Zalari leaders who sat in a semicircle, their expressions inscrutable. The only sound was the soft whir of the cooling systems, amplifying the tension that crackled in the air. Zektar adjusted the hollow projector, his fingers trembling slightly. Maria noticed and placed a reassuring hand on his arm. You've got this, Zektar. Remember, this is about sharing our truth, not just facts. He nodded, swallowing hard. Esteemed leaders of the Zalari, Zektar began, his voice echoing in the room. Today, we are not just here to present data on why peace is essential. We are here to share our stories that connect us, that show the weight of our experiences. His large eyes scanned the room, searching for any flicker of understanding. Maria stood beside him, her heart pounding. She could see the skepticism etched on the faces of the Zalari. They were beings of logic, used to calculations and projections rather than the ebb and flow of human emotion. Our families, our histories, they shape our choices, she added, her voice steadying as she took a step forward. Zektar's father once sought peace with your people during a time of great conflict. I believe his story can resonate with you. Zektar took a deep breath, as if drawing strength from her words. When my father was a young leader, tensions escalated between our two species. Fear gripped both sides, leading to anger and resentment. But he believed that understanding could overcome that fear. He paused, glancing at Maria, who nodded encouragingly. In a time when conflicts were common, he took the bold step of approaching your leaders, not with threats, but with an invitation for dialogue. Zektar continued, his voice growing more confident with each word. He understood that while logic is essential, it is our emotions that drive us. He shared our fears and hopes, and in return, he listened to your fears as well. For a moment, the Zalari leaders remained unmoved, their expressions still inscrutable. But then Zektar noticed slight shifts, a flicker of interest from one leader, Corvin, who had been sitting at the edge of the semicircle. His antennae twitched, and his gaze focused intently on Zektar. My father's approach was not met with immediate acceptance, Zektar continued, sensing the shift. There were those who doubted his intentions, who thought his emotional appeal was a weakness. However, in sharing our narratives, he created a pathway to understanding. There was a moment when your leaders shared their own stories of loss of family, loss of trust. It was through those shared experiences that alliances were forged. Maria could feel the room shift. Corvin leaned forward, his interest palpable. And what happened after this initial acceptance? He asked, his voice low but filled with curiosity. Zektar seized the opportunity. From that point on, our people began to communicate more openly. We learned that our differences didn't have to divide us, instead, they could enrich our joint efforts. My father's effort to connect emotionally was a stepping stone to lasting peace. Corvin's expression softened, and for the first time, Maria felt a glimmer of hope. You speak of stories, but do you have proof of this connection? He asked, still cautious but more engaged than before. Data can show you the aftermath of war, but it cannot show you the fear that drives it, Maria interjected. When we share our stories, we humanize our experiences. You see beyond the numbers and recognize the pain and joy that bind us. She felt the weight of her words hang in the air, a delicate balance between data and emotion. Zektar nodded. The Zalari and my people share a history of conflict, but together, we can rewrite that narrative. The stories of our families, the love, the sacrifices, these are the threads that can weave new connections between us. A ripple of murmurs spread through the assembly. Zektar's confidence surged as he continued, I can share my family's pain and hope. My father's story is not just an anecdote, it is a blueprint for understanding. We must not underestimate the power of vulnerability. As Zektar spoke, Maria could see Corvin's posture shifting subtly, his rigid demeanor softening. The change was imperceptible but significant. He was listening, truly listening, and the room began to feel lighter. Perhaps it is time we consider a different approach, Corvin finally said, his voice resonating with a newfound warmth. One that embraces our differences rather than shunning them. Maria exchanged a glance with Zektar, her heart racing. This was the breakthrough they had been hoping for. Exactly, she affirmed. Together, we can create a dialogue, a unity that respects both our cultures and experiences. Corvin nodded slowly, his gaze thoughtful. If we can truly share our fears and hopes, perhaps we can foster something greater than just an agreement. Perhaps we can build a legacy of understanding. Zektar's eyes glistened, pride swelling within him. I believe we can craft a new future. A future where stories of our families lead to a collective strength. The atmosphere in the room shifted, the initial skepticism melting away as hope began to fill the space. Maria felt a profound sense of purpose. They were no longer just two individuals fighting for peace, they were catalysts for change. As the discussions deepened, Maria realized that they were on the precipice of something monumental. The barriers that had once divided their worlds were beginning to crumble, replaced by a growing understanding. She and Zektar had ignited a spark, and now it was up to them to fan the flames of unity, transforming their narratives into a shared destiny. In that moment, surrounded by the leaders of another world, Maria knew that this wasn't just about preventing war. It was about forging bonds that would echo through generations, about weaving a tapestry of stories that celebrated their differences while uniting them in their shared humanity. This was just the beginning. Maria felt a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a tension that buzzed like static electricity. Zektar's voice faded as her mind raced with thoughts of the implications of their meeting. Just as she was about to speak up again, a low murmur rose from the Zalari leaders, murmurs that shifted into whispers. She caught snippets of their words: propaganda, manipulation, and war. Zektar, she whispered, leaning toward him, I think they're discussing something else. Something more than just peace talks. He turned, his eyes wide with concern. What do you mean? Before she could respond, a figure stood up from the semicircle. It was Corvin, the Zalari leader who had initially shown interest in their discussion. He looked serious, his antennae twitching with urgency. We must address a matter of great importance, Corvin began, his tone commanding attention. There are factions within our society that believe conflict is the only path to strength. Maria felt her heart race. This wasn't just a discussion about peace, it was a revelation that could change everything. Zektar, this is it. I know, he murmured back, his expression a mix of fear and determination. We need to bring this to light. Corvin continued, these factions are manipulating narratives, spreading misinformation about your people. They want conflict because it serves their interests. The room fell silent, the leaders exchanging concerned glances. Maria seized the moment. That's exactly it. If we can expose this manipulation, we can unite our people against the real enemy, the ones who want war for their gain. Zektar nodded vigorously, the spark of hope igniting within him. But how do we prove it? His voice quaked slightly, a flicker of doubt creeping in. Information is key, Maria replied, her mind racing with possibilities. If we can gather evidence of their tactics, we can present it to the leaders. We need to show them that this isn't just about peace, it's about survival. Corvin's eyes narrowed, intrigue mixed with caution. Gathering evidence will not be easy. There are risks involved. I understand, Maria said, a steely resolve settling over her. But if we don't act now, the war will happen regardless of our intentions. We must act swiftly and wisely. At that moment, Zektar's expression hardened. I will not let my people be pawns in a game of greed. We need allies, Maria. We will need to convince those who still believe in peace to stand with us. Corvin nodded, his antennae lifting. I can help you, but we must tread carefully. The factions will not take kindly to our interference. As the leaders began discussing strategy, Maria felt a rush of adrenaline. They were no longer just talking about peace, they were preparing to fight for it. Zektar's father's story had ignited a fire, but now they needed tangible proof of the manipulation that threatened their future. Hours slipped by as they strategized, voices rising and falling like a tide. Maria stayed focused, taking notes and mapping out a plan. She could feel the tension in the room, but there was also an undercurrent of hope, a belief that they could change the course of history. Eventually, the meeting drew to a close. Corvin stood up, signaling the end. "We will reconvene tomorrow. Remember, we are not only fighting for our people but for the legacy of peace that we all desire." As the leaders began to disperse, Zektar turned to Maria, an intense look in his eyes. "We need to be prepared. There's a risk that the factions will act against us before we can gather the evidence." "I know," she replied, feeling the weight of their task. "We'll need to tread carefully, but we also can't waste time." "We should start gathering information tonight," Zektar suggested, his resolve solidifying. "I have contacts who might be able to help." Maria's heart raced. "Let's go then. We'll need to be quick and efficient." As they stepped out of the conference room, the bustling atmosphere of the Gamma 7 spaceport enveloped them once again. The vibrant lights and sounds felt different now, more alive and urgent. They were no longer just a taxi driver and a Zalari politician, they were allies on the brink of a pivotal moment in their shared history. "Where do we start?" Maria asked, glancing up at Zektar as they made their way through the crowded corridors. "There's a bar nearby where some of the Zalari gather. It's a good place to find information, and I have a contact who works there." Maria nodded, determination flooding her veins. "Let's go. We need to catch them before they go to ground." As they navigated through the throngs of beings, Maria felt a strange sense of empowerment. She was no longer just a taxi driver, she was a part of something larger, a fight not just for her people but for a future where understanding prevailed over conflict. But as they approached the bar, a sense of unease settled over her. What if the factions were already onto them? What if they were walking into a trap? She glanced at Zektar, who seemed lost in thought, his expression a mix of hope and apprehension. "Stay alert," she whispered, sensing the gravity of the moment. "We don't know who we can trust." Zektar nodded, his antennae bending slightly in acknowledgement. "Let's see what we can uncover, and then we'll make our move." As they entered the dimly lit bar, the atmosphere shifted once again. The air was thick with smoke and chatter, a world apart from the sterile conference room. But beneath the surface, Maria could feel the tension simmering. Together, they stepped into the fray, ready to uncover the truth and face the looming threat head-on. The stakes had never been higher, but neither of them was willing to back down. They were here for peace, and they would fight for it with everything they had. Maria and Zektar stepped out of the conference room, the buzz of the Zalari leader's murmurs still echoing in her ears. The weight of their conversation pressed heavily upon her shoulders. As they made their way through the bustling corridors of the Gamma 7 intergalactic spaceport, each footstep felt like a step toward an uncertain future. "Do you think they believe us?" Zektar asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he feared the walls themselves would betray their intentions. "They have to," Maria replied, her heart racing. "They can't ignore the possibility that they've been manipulated. If they do, it's not just our lives at stake, it's theirs too." She glanced around, ensuring no one was eavesdropping. The vibrant atmosphere buzzed with chatter from various species, but she felt a disconnect, as if she and Zektar were in a bubble of their own. As they reached the main terminal, a sense of urgency gripped Maria. "We need to find your contacts," she urged. "If we're going to gather evidence, we can't waste any time." Zektar nodded, determination flooding his features. "There's a place not far from here, a bar frequented by those who have ties to the factions. If anyone knows what's going on, it's them." He glanced over at her, concern flickering in his eyes. "Are you ready for this?" Maria squared her shoulders, her resolve hardening. "I've come too far to back down now. Let's go." They made their way through the crowd, Maria's senses heightened. She could feel the pulse of the city around her. The hum of conversations, the scent of exotic foods, and the vibrant colors of the stalls created a chaotic tapestry, but her mind was laser-focused on their mission. The bar was tucked away in a dimly lit corner of the terminal, its neon sign flickering as if it too had seen better days. As they entered, the atmosphere shifted. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and spilled drinks, and the low murmur of conversations fell to a hush as patrons glanced over at the newcomers. Zektar led the way to a small booth at the back. "This is where we'll find Phelan," he said, scanning the room. "He's got connections with the factions and might have heard something." As they settled into the booth, Maria couldn't help but feel a surge of anxiety. The stakes had never felt higher. "What if Phelan doesn't want to help?" she asked, biting her lip. Zektar shrugged, his antennae twitching slightly. "Then we'll have to convince him. He's motivated by profit, so if we can show him the potential fallout of a war, he might listen." Just as he finished speaking, a figure approached the booth. Phelan was a wiry Zalari with dark scales and a shifty demeanor. He slid into the seat across from them, eyeing them with suspicion. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. "I don't have time for idle chit-chat." "We need information," Maria said, leaning forward. "We believe there are factions trying to manipulate both our people into war. We need to know what they're planning." Phelan raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched across his face. "And why would I help you? You two don't exactly scream trustworthy." Zektar inhaled deeply, choosing his words carefully. "Because if war breaks out, it will affect everyone, including you. Your business will suffer." "Do you really want to be on the losing side of this?" Phelan's expression shifted, a flicker of consideration crossing his face. "What do you have to offer?" Maria pulled a small device from her pocket, a holographic projector. "We've gathered some intel from the conference. If we can prove that manipulation is happening, we can expose the factions for what they truly are." She paused, gauging his reaction. "But we need your help to confirm it. You have contacts, don't you? People who can get us proof?" Phelan's eyes glimmered with interest, the gears in his mind visibly turning. "I might know a few who could help," he said slowly, "but it won't come cheap. I want a percentage of whatever you uncover. I won't risk my neck for free." "Fair enough," Zektar replied, holding out a hand. "We have a deal." As they sealed their agreement, Maria felt a wave of relief wash over her. They were one step closer to uncovering the truth. But as the three of them huddled around the projector, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The hologram flickered to life, displaying a series of images and data streams. She pointed to the visuals, highlighting the connections between various factions. "This is what we've pieced together. They're sowing distrust among our people, creating a narrative that favors war over peace." Phelan leaned closer, intrigued. His eyes scanned the data, a mix of surprise and intrigue crossing his features. "This is impressive, but you'll need more than just this to convince the leaders." Suddenly, the door swung open, and a group of Zalari entered, their presence commanding attention. Maria's heart dropped. "Zektar, it's the factions," she whispered urgently. Phelan's eyes widened, and he quickly gestured for them to quiet down. The newcomers scanned the room, their expressions a mix of disdain and suspicion. "We need to get out of here," he hissed. "Not without the data," Zektar insisted, his voice firm. "We can't let them take this from us." Maria's pulse quickened. "We can't risk being seen. If they recognize us," before she could finish, one of the faction members spotted them and pointed. "There! They're with Phelan." Panic surged through Maria as the group began to move toward their booth. "We have to go now," she shouted, grabbing Zektar's arm. They bolted from the booth, weaving through the crowd as the faction members shouted behind them. The bar erupted into chaos as patrons scrambled to get out of the way. "Quick, this way," Zektar urged, leading Maria towards a service exit at the back of the bar. She could hear the pounding of footsteps behind them, a relentless reminder of the danger they were in. As they burst through the door and into the dimly lit alley, Maria felt her breath hitch in her throat. "What now?" she panted, glancing over her shoulder as the door swung open behind them. "Stay low," Zektar instructed. "We need to find a safe place to regroup." They ducked behind a stack of crates, the sounds of pursuing voices echoing in the narrow alley. Maria could hear her heartbeat in her ears, a rhythmic reminder of the stakes at hand. "Did you get everything?" Zektar asked, his eyes scanning the alley for escape routes. "Most of it, I think," she replied, her mind racing. "But we can't let them find us. If they do, it will jeopardize everything." "Let's move," Zektar urged, pulling her along. They slipped into the shadows, the danger of being caught a constant reminder of the conflict that loomed over them. They were no longer just trying to prevent war, they were now part of the conflict themselves, and every decision they made would determine the fate of both their people. As they navigated through the maze of alleyways, Maria felt a surge of determination. They had come too far to back down now. They would gather the evidence, expose the deception, and fight for the peace they both believed in. But first, they needed to survive the night. The path ahead was fraught with danger, yet it also promised the chance for collaboration and understanding between their worlds. If they could expose the truth, perhaps they could forge a new destiny together. And with that thought, Maria steeled herself for the battle that lay ahead. Maria felt the weight of the moment settle heavily on her shoulders as she and Zektar sat across from Phelan. The air in the bar was thick with tension, punctuated only by the low hum of subdued conversations that resumed as patrons turned their attention back to their own affairs. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, urging her to push through the anxiety that threatened to choke her. Phelan's eyes narrowed as he considered their proposal. Rallying factions and convincing them to lay down arms is no small task. You'll need more than just words and a hologram to make this happen. His gravelly voice was laced with skepticism. Zektar leaned forward, his antennae perked with a sense of urgency. We're not asking for much, just enough information to prove that there is manipulation happening behind the scenes. You know how dangerous it could be if war breaks out." Phelan's gaze flickered between them, weighing their desperation against his own self-interest. "You're right. A war would affect everyone, including me. But what's in it for me? You've got nothing to offer." Maria exchanged a glance with Sektar, who nodded subtly. She took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "What if we could guarantee that factions looking to profit from war would be exposed? You'd be the one to provide the evidence that could dismantle their plans." Phelan paused, his interest piqued. "Go on. If you help us gather intel, we can develop a strategy to counteract their influence," Maria continued, her confidence building. "And if you play a key role in that process, you'll be hailed as a hero among your people." The flicker of greed in Phelan's eyes was unmistakable, but so was the glimmer of caution. "You're asking me to put my neck on the line for a couple of outsiders. What if this plan fails?" "It won't," Sektar asserted. "We have resources at our disposal that could help us, but we need your connections. You know the undercurrents of your society better than anyone." Phelan leaned back, considering their words. "All right, I might know a few contacts, but they won't come cheap. I want a percentage of whatever you gain from this endeavor." Maria nodded, the tension in her chest easing slightly as they moved closer to a potential alliance. "You'll have your cut. Just get us to the right people." Phelan smirked. "You're more resourceful than I expected. I'll make a few calls. Meet me back here in an hour." He slid out of the booth, disappearing into the crowd before Maria could respond. "Do you think he'll actually come through for us?" Maria asked, her voice trembling slightly with uncertainty. Sektar's expression hardened. "He has to. This is his chance to save his people. But we need to prepare for any backlash." They exited the bar, the noise of the spaceport washing over them once more. Maria glanced at the various shops and stands, their bright colors and sounds a stark contrast to the weight of their mission. "What's our next move?" she asked, her mind racing. "We need to gather more information about the factions involved," Sektar replied. "I can reach out to a few trusted individuals within the Zalari community. They may have insights into who stands to gain from this conflict." "You should speak to your connections as well. Maybe there's someone in your world who has heard something." Maria nodded, determination igniting within her. "I can check in with the taxi service head. He knows a lot about the different species arriving and leaving the spaceport. Maybe he's heard whispers." As they parted ways, Maria felt a renewed sense of purpose. If she could just gather enough information, they could expose the factions and avert disaster. She made her way back to the taxi center, the familiar scent of burnt fuel and warm metal welcoming her. "Hey, Carlos," she called out as she entered, spotting her colleague sorting through paperwork. "Got a minute?" Carlos looked up, eyebrows raised. "Sure, Maria. What's up? You look like you've run a marathon." "I might as well have." She leaned against the counter, her voice low. "I need your help. I'm looking for information about any factions or groups that might be manipulating things around here." "It's urgent." Carlos's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "You're not getting mixed up in something dangerous, are you?" "Just trust me, Carlos. If we don't act now, it could mean war." She explained the situation briefly, focusing on the potential fallout. "I'll see what I can dig up." "You know I'm always in the loop," he reassured her. "But be careful. You don't know who's listening." Maria nodded, grateful for his support. "Thanks, Carlos. I owe you one." After exchanging a few more words, she stepped back into the bustling spaceport, her mind whirring with possibilities. Every face she passed seemed to tell a story, each one a puzzle piece in the larger picture of interspecies relations. She could feel the pulse of tension in the air, a current that could either lead to catastrophe or a new beginning. As she returned to the meeting point with Sektar, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. The stakes were impossibly high, but she had faith in their collective strength. They were about to become catalysts for change, not just for themselves, but for their entire species. When Sektar arrived, the tension in the air was palpable. He looked invigorated, a newfound determination radiating from him. "I spoke with a few trusted allies," he said, his voice steady. "They're willing to help. We can start drafting a peace agreement that respects both our cultures." Maria's heart swelled with hope. "A peace agreement? That's ambitious. But how do we ensure it's accepted?" Sektar's eyes sparkled with excitement. "We'll include cultural exchange programs. It's crucial that both our peoples understand each other better. We need to build bridges, not walls." "Yes, that's exactly it," Maria exclaimed, her enthusiasm contagious. "If we can highlight the benefits of mutual cooperation, we might just convince the leaders to take us seriously." As they discussed the details, Maria felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time since their journey began, the dream of peace felt tangible, like a star within reach. Their efforts rippled through the spaceport, the atmosphere shifting from anxiety to anticipation. As word spread about the peace initiative, excitement built among the various species. They could feel the community rallying around the idea of collaboration, a vibrant tapestry woven from diverse threads. That evening, they organized a gathering in the heart of Gamma 7, a celebration of unity among species. The anticipation was electric as beings from different worlds came together, sharing stories, food, and laughter. Maria stood beside Zektar, watching as the crowd mingled. "Can you believe this?" she asked, her voice filled with awe. "I can," he replied, a sense of pride swelling within him. "This is just the beginning. We're changing the narrative." As the celebration unfolded, Maria realized that they had already begun to make history, and perhaps, just perhaps, they could turn the tide away from conflict and toward a future of understanding and peace. Maria stood at the edge of the bustling plaza, her heart swelling with a mix of anxiety and hope. The Grand Festival of Unity was in full swing, a vibrant celebration of peace that showcased the rich tapestry of both human and Zalari cultures. Colorful banners fluttered in the warm breeze, and the air was saturated with the aroma of exotic foods mingling with the familiar sense of human street vendors. Laughter and music filled the atmosphere, a stark contrast to the heavy weight of uncertainty that had hung over them just days before. Zektar stood beside her, his antennae twitching slightly, absorbing the lively energy that pulsed around them. "It's remarkable," he said, his voice filled with awe. "To see our people and yours celebrating together, it almost feels unreal." Maria nodded, her gaze sweeping over the diverse crowd. "It's a testament to what we can achieve when we come together." She felt a warmth in her chest, the kind that only comes from witnessing something truly beautiful. This festival was the result of their hard work, their determination to unite against the looming threat of war. They had gathered the evidence, exposed the manipulative factions, and brought the truth to light, all while forging bonds that transcended species. As they moved deeper into the festival, Maria spotted a group of children, both human and Zalari, playing together near a fountain. Their laughter rang out like music, the innocence of their friendship a powerful reminder of what was at stake. She recalled the conversations she had with her fellow taxi drivers, sharing whispers of the impending conflict, the fear that had gripped the community. But as she watched these children, she realized that they were the future, and it was her responsibility to ensure they lived in a world free of hatred and division. "Maria!" A familiar voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned to see Carlos approaching, his face beaming with excitement. "You won't believe it. The festival is a hit. Everyone is talking about how the Zalari and humans are getting along. It's like a dream." "Carlos," she exclaimed, embracing him, "I'm so glad you're here. This is incredible, isn't it?" "Absolutely. I've seen people from all over the spaceport come together. Even Phelan is out there, mingling with the crowd." He gestured toward a booth where Phelan was animatedly discussing something with a group of Zalari merchants. "He's become quite the celebrity since helping expose those corrupt factions." A sense of pride washed over Maria. Phelan had taken the risk, and it had paid off. His willingness to step out of the shadows had not only saved countless lives but had also earned him respect among his peers. It's good to see him getting recognition for his role. "Speaking of which," Carlos said, lowering his voice conspiratorially, "I heard he's planning to run for a leadership position in the council." "Can you imagine? A human and a Zalari working together to lead?" Maria couldn't help but smile. "That would be amazing. It's what we need, a united front." She glanced at Zektar, who was observing the interactions with keen interest. "This festival represents a new era for us all." As the celebration continued, Maria found herself reflecting on her journey. The weight of the past few weeks had been immense, filled with uncertainty and fear. But through it all, she had discovered the power of empathy and communication. She had learned to listen, to understand the fears and hopes of those around her, regardless of species. It was a lesson that had transformed her, and she hoped it would resonate with others. "Maria," Zektar said, pulling her from her reverie, "do you feel it? The shift in the atmosphere? It's as if everyone here is united in purpose." "I do," she replied, her heart racing. "It's like the air is charged with possibility." She gestured toward the stage where performers from both cultures were about to showcase a collaborative dance. "This is what we fought for, a world where differences are celebrated rather than feared." As the performance began, Maria was captivated by the seamless blend of human and Zalari movements. The dancers flowed together, their bodies telling a story of struggle and triumph, of overcoming obstacles and embracing one another. It was a powerful reminder that their journey was far from over, but they had taken the first crucial steps toward a brighter future. "Look at them," Zektar murmured, his eyes reflecting the joy around them. "They are dancing not just for themselves but for every being that dreams of peace." The performance concluded with a resounding cheer from the crowd, and Maria felt tears prick at her eyes. She knew that the road ahead would still have its challenges, but witnessing this moment filled her with hope. If they could come together in celebration, surely they could face any adversity that lay ahead. As the festivities continued late into the night, Maria and Zektar stood side by side, watching the stars twinkle above them. The festival was a symbol of their hard-won peace, a reminder that understanding and connection were powerful tools against division. "Do you think this will last?" Maria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zektar turned to her, his expression earnest. "As long as we continue to communicate, to share our stories and experiences, we can ensure that it will. The bonds we've forged will carry us through." Maria smiled, feeling a sense of determination swell within her. "Then we'll keep sharing our stories. We'll keep reminding everyone of what we accomplished together." With a renewed sense of purpose, they joined the throng of celebrants, ready to embrace the future. The festival was not just a celebration, it was a declaration, a promise that they would stand together, no matter the odds. As the music swelled and laughter rang out, Maria couldn't help but think of the children playing nearby. They were the embodiment of hope, and she was determined to protect that hope, to nurture it, and to ensure that it flourished. In a world where differences could spark conflict, they had found a way to unite. And in that moment, as the stars shone brightly above, Maria knew that they had not just averted war, they had ignited a movement, one that would resonate through generations to come.